Your Creative Push, episode 91.
There is no one that's going to give you a chance. You have to go out there and get the chance yourself.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Casey Destefano. Casey is an accomplished director and producer in film and TV, but she is now dedicating her life to inspire entrepreneurial mothers to live their dream while sneaking ice cream behind her children's back. And to do this, she has created a new podcast, Women with Balls, in the Air. Casey, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the show. Before we get into stuff about your new podcast, could you tell me a little bit about your background in television and film?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I love your show, so it's a real honor.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, basically, I started as a PA, a production assistant, over here in New York City, working for Nickelodeon, where I got an internship from. And I realized quite quick that I wanted to be out of the office and in the field, so I made some connections in California and started working my way up. I went out there not knowing anybody or knowing too much, just one person, and slept on a couch. And I was a PA and then became a locations manager, on and on, second unit director, then director and producer. So it's been a long haul, but I was able to do and accomplish what I wanted to.
Very cool. So I've listened to the podcast, so I know the answer, but can I ask, what was it that pushed you into podcasting?
Quite honestly, I really wanted to get the word out. I really wanted to grow my network and reach as many women as I could. So I thought that podcasting, one, would be a great way to do it. And two, it was a creative process for me. And so I love more than anything to be creative. And I figured, hey, this is a great way I can do both.
Yeah. So speaking of like your creative kind of passion, where did that all start? Like, can you take us back to one of your first memories or your first moments being creative?
I would say the most defining moment when I realized that I am naturally creative and that I really enjoy being creative was in college. Originally, I was a dancer before I entered college, and that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a Broadway dancer, as many of us girls thought we wanted to be. But I wasn't really an accomplished dancer. But I then realized that, hey, I'm good, but I'm not good enough. And it was like probably the best career choice I've ever made in my whole entire life when I said, okay, I'm going to put these shoes away, but I still love to entertain. So I figured, how can I entertain, go to college, and kind of keep that going? So I went into film and television in college. And I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I had this editing project that I had to do. Of course, being in college, I was in a sorority. We used to party a lot, have a great time. And I pushed this project all the way to the last 24 hours. I didn't do it. And what the project was, it was a music video that we had to shoot and edit. And I waited to the last minute. I didn't write anything. I didn't put anything together. And then I just woke up that Friday morning, I remember, hungover as all hell and sick to my stomach, throwing up and just a mess, and realizing I have to hand in this project in 24 hours. So I got it together. I picked my song, which was Steve Miller Band's Take the Money and Run.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, still a favorite of mine. And I picked that song because it had a story to it. I'm like, okay, I'll just shoot the story. I'll try to, make stuff up and shoot what he's talking about. And so I got my family together, my boyfriend at the time. I got my grandmother's car, and it was snowing, and I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? We're supposed to be in Texas. And, I got all the props. I got everything together and shot this thing in the middle of being sick and heaving. My lunch, like every time I ate, I would be sick.
Oh my God.
But I got this whole thing together. I went to the studio and I edited it and got it in on time, and I got an A in the project. And it was like, after it was all done, I was like, oh my God, I was like physically at my worst, and I still knocked it out. And I loved every second of it. Like the whole day I was like laughing, puking. It was like one of those defining moments. I was like, this is what I have to do. I did it under such, illness and pressure and everything. And I was just like, okay, this is my direction.
Do you still find that like pushing things off to the last moment, you do your best work that way?
That's funny. Yes and no.
Mhm.
The way it's changed for me is not pushing things to the last minute because I love preparing and I love prepping. I just love that process of the time it gives you and, being able to change things and prep and all that. But I do find that I work my best when I put myself up against the gun. Like,
Mhm.
what I mean by that is I do really well if I've never done something before and then I get a client that I have to do that for, then I learn how to do it and I do it well. Like I kind of throw myself in the fire that way.
Right.
Maybe not so much as a time limit or last minute, but just throwing myself into the fire and figuring out how to do it.
Yeah. Sometimes when you get in a habit of doing something, it's like automatic, and you're not using like the creative juices as well. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Are there any things that kind of initially held you back from, aside from being hungover and waiting to the last minute? Are there other things that kind of initially held you back from doing your creative work, and then kind of maybe some that still do?
I think in the beginning, well, no, actually, it still happens to this day. Absolutely. I think in the beginning, it was a lot of lack of knowledge. I mean, don't forget, I'm older, so we didn't have the internet. Like the internet was not around when I was in film school.
Hmm.
So you didn't have a plethora of information just to learn on your own. You had to just listen to your teachers and to a few friends that knew what they were doing. So I think the lack of knowledge and the fear of the unknown was scary for me in the beginning. And I know that when I was in my career in the beginning, I had the opportunity to be around a lot of really good writers. And so I knew at that stage I wasn't as talented or as good as they were. And so that kind of held me back then.
Hmm.
But now, I mean, when it comes to being creative, I mean, I've been creative all my life now, and it's made that muscle really strong, and I've had lots of practice. For that reason, that's probably the thing that I'm most confident about in my whole entire life is my creativity. Like I feel like you can throw me anywhere and I can make something creative out of it. So I'm not really held back that way anymore. Oh, and another thing that was a little story, sorry.
Don't be
There's
sorry.
this there's another thing that was really detrimental to not holding myself back or not being resistant to
Hmm.
creativity. And I talk about this on my podcast that I had the wonderful opportunity to shadow Marty Scorsese on the set, The Departed.
Oh,
It was, oh yeah, it was great.
it's such a good movie too. It's one of my
Oh,
favorites.
yeah, it was great, great. I mean, everything. I mean, Marty Scorsese is by far my biggest idol, and I got the chance to shadow him for a week. And the most amazing thing that I saw in this whole week, besides, all the talent and how everything worked and the crew, and it was just, but I was so surprised because Marty Scorsese is vulnerable. Marty Scorsese, at his stage in the game, needs self reassurance. I mean, and he himself, like the way he would talk to his DP, his director of photography, is like the same way that I talk. I mean, word for word, he would be asking him the same thing that I talk to my director of photography about when I'm shooting something. And it just, I don't know, it was just one of those things that kind of put everything on a level playing field. And please, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I have anywhere near as much talent as that man, but I'm just saying that being a creative, that we're all creatives together and we all have fears that never stops. So it's okay. It's okay to be fearful that maybe you're not doing the right thing, but just do it, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and that's why I love this podcast, because we can get people of all different levels, and that's one of the things that it's funny because it's always reassuring to me seeing that everybody has, like, at all levels has these, they all need reassurance as well. It's
Yeah.
so nice that, like you said, it puts everybody on a level playing field, and it kind of builds up your confidence too, like to see that legends struggle with the same thing. It's something that kind of never goes away.
No, absolutely. And, one of the wonderful things about creatives, about real creatives, is that I feel that we all feel like we're in it together.
Hmm.
And the real heroes of being who are creative. Like if they see that you're struggling, they still try to help you. It's not like, oh, that's a bad idea. Oh, that idea sucks. Like
Yeah.
they're not, that's not how they are. If you're real creative, like, because, you've always been there too. You were somewhere trying to figure something out, trying to make it better. And when you surround yourself with other real creatives, it's a really great support system. And it's just a nice place to be.
Yeah, we are all in this together, and
Yeah.
if you don't struggle from it, you're like a freak of nature. If you don't have these, if you don't need reassurance, and if you don't have these like resistances that hold you back. And the other thing about like being kind of unconfident, like at any point in your career, not always unconfident, but having bouts of confidence issues, it shows you that you're still growing. And I think if you're very comfortable, you get complacent and you're not growing as an artist or as a creative person. So I think it always helps to show that you're on the right path of growing. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have like a worst moment or a hardest time in your career?
Yes, actually. As soon as you asked me that, I'm like, it went right to like, what was the most unenjoyable time in my career? And that was when I sold out. And I think everyone should sell out just once in their career because it teaches you so many lessons about not even just about being creative or your career. It teaches you a lot about life too.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say the place where I sold out in, but
that's fine.
Yeah. But I took this job with this production company because they were paying me a boatload of money.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time, I think, in my career that I was getting paid a lot of money for a long, long period of time. So, in television, you have a lot of freelance work. So, yeah, you'll make a lot of money for a short period of time, but you don't know when that next gig is coming. So it's not like you really do make a lot of money. You know what I mean? So like, that's like the monetizing part of it.
Right.
But so this was like my first opportunity to like do well in that way. I didn't really believe in the product, and they were doing other things. They were gonna ship me and my whole family back to the East Coast, and me and my fiance, we wanted to do that also, and we were having the wedding there. So there was like all these wrong reasons why I did it. And just working with this production company, they did not have a lot of creative people, the ones that we were talking about before. So, we would be sitting at a conference table, and you'd throw an idea in, like, like a writer's table, and you'd throw an idea in like you would do any other writer's table on any other, television show. And the other writer would be sitting there with a bottle in his hand, spitting, like chewing, tobacco.
Ugh. Yeah.
And he'd be like, well, I don't hate it.
Ugh.
And that would be, so that was like, besides all the other, like, I was the only woman in the room. So there would be lots of other misogynistic, really inappropriate things that were being said. So if you'd ask my worst moment, it was definitely working on the show, because it single-handedly crushed all my creativity for this time span that I was there.
Mm.
So the moral of the story is, don't ever sell out if you don't have to. I mean, I didn't have to, but don't sell out. Pick a job, a creative job with like-minded people that you will enjoy working with.
Yeah, or sell out once, like you said, so you can know the feeling and never do it again.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
How did you get out of that? Like, what was like the defining moment that you were like, all right, this is not for me. Peace.
After a 42-day straight stint of work with not one day off.
Ooh.
Yes, that was also another part of it. And we'd get and fly on, like on the weekends, we'd fly on private jets. It was like, oh, so cool, great. It sucked because you'd be working on this jet, and I hated
working on the jet, going to do more work.
Yeah, exactly. So there was never, and like I remember one time, my boss at the time had said, she gave us a Sunday off, right? And so then we had a Monday conference call, and I remember her saying, guys, I gave you Sunday off. Why didn't you have this completed? You know what I mean? Like,
oh, by off, you meant not off.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got off tangent. What was the question?
When did you like decide, like what made you decide
Oh,
to
how'd I get out of
jump
it?
ship?
Right.
Yeah.
So after that long stint, I was like, okay, you know what? I love what I do. I love television. I love film. This is not that. I can't do it anymore. And you know what? We had just bought a house at the top of the market too. And so I had to make that buck. But you know what? I still was like, forget it. I'm not doing it anymore. And I was just like, I got to be happy. I got to be me. So I quit.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
good for you.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, do you have like a best moment?
Yes, I have a best moment. The best moment, I mean, I've had a lot of best moments, a lot. And knock on wood, I'm so lucky. But I would say the best moment was the first time I got hired to direct a television show as a DGA director, which is like a union director. And that by far, well, that was the best thing because it was like, oh, finally all this hard work. Okay, they hired me. It's great. But then after, like when I was directing, I was a wreck because I was so nervous. And I was like, oh my God, did I do bad? Did I do good? How'd I do? Do they hate me? Do they love me? Are they going to like my show? So it was in the edit. I was sweating every day.
Hmm.
So I think that was the best thing. But I think even one was a little bit better was the day after my show was edited and the executive producer, and I was waiting outside for him. And the executive producer came out and was like, Casey, that was awesome. You're definitely directing another one. And I was like,
Oh,
oh. So I would say that the second part was even better.
yeah. Just getting that affirmation that you're like, okay,
Absolutely. Like that I can do this in the big leagues.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, so where would you say like your true passion is these days? Like, is it in the TV film or is it in the podcasting or something else?
I love my company. We do video, and I love doing video. I love shooting, getting out there on the road and traveling and all that. But now, my life has changed quite a bit because I have two children.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very big transition, a very big pivotal time for me once I had my children, because I wanted to be because I basically found something that I'm even more passionate about. So, balancing two passions is quite difficult. So I now have basically changed over so I can do video, I can run my business and still see my children as much as I'd like to. So I've become an entrepreneur, and now I'm my own boss. So I don't have to worry about, someone else hiring me and on their hours and their schedule. Now everything's on my schedule, so I can do both. So that's a great life change that I've done. And now what I do is I assist helping women who are career women who have kids, and basically getting them back into the gear, back into their careers again, or, doing what I do, being an entrepreneur and trying to help them kind of just get back to their lives. And I got to tell you, it is so fulfilling. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about your podcast is just like you said, it's you're talking about and helping people with exactly what you're going through. That's why I did this podcast, because I was struggling being creative every day, and when you have a full-time job and coming home, it's really tough to not sit down and just watch TV and turn your brain off. It's really tough to sit down and do the work. So I really appreciate that you are able to do that passion to describe your situation and help other people that way.
Yeah, no, I really love doing it. And it's just like I'm learning and then I teach. I learn and then I teach. I learn, so because I feel like I just want to be there. I want to be that support system for the women who might have, like me, it was really hard for me when I first had my kids. So because it was just like, okay, how do I give up this passion that I have? I was happy, and like moms don't want to say that. So I'm saying it for them. Motherhood is really difficult if you're already living your dream. And then you have a new dream. So how do you balance it all? And so it's very fulfilling to be able to help other women like that.
And what would you say is, you say you learn and then you teach, and you learn and then you teach. What's like probably the greatest thing that you've learned so far on the podcast?
From doing the podcast?
Yeah.
How it touches the lives of other women.
Mm.
It's just like it brings a tear to my eye. It just happened the other day. I was at the dentist office, and we were talking. I had my kids there, and she was like, "Oh, that must have been really hard that you have them, because they're only about a year apart, that you have them together." And I was like, I'm like, "Yep, I recognize that it's hard, and then I fix it, and then I move on. Like that's just, boom, boom, boom. And she wanted to talk about how hard it was because for her it was really hard, and she didn't have maybe those skills of, okay, recognizing, realizing, fixing, and moving on quickly. So it was just one of those moments where I'm in a dentist office. I'm waiting for the orthodontic guy to come over, the dentist to come over. And we just had this great bonding moment. And she was like choked up when I told her that I'm helping women who had a hard time like she did. And she was like, oh, we really need that. I'm like, I know. That's why I'm doing it,
Yeah.
So.
And it's funny because you can find people that I've had similar situations, not with not with women like that, but but where you make a connection where like somebody's eyes kind of light up and they're like, oh wow, like why doesn't anybody else do that? Like that's exactly what I need, or like that's exactly what a lot of people need, and it's really nice to be able to help people. What would you suggest? Because I don't know if you had a similar experience, but for me, I kind of independently just decided to start a podcast, and I still, I guess, struggle a little bit with the kind of confidence issues of who am I? Who am I to be able to do this and to be a voice of, inspiration for people? But I truly was just a random person who just decided to do it. I don't really have any experience in, I write and stuff like that, but I don't have any experience in motivating people except for the fact that I've been through it. Does that resonate with you at all?
It does and it doesn't. I mean, yes, in the beginning, when I first started my company and focusing on, actually, when I first started my company, it was film and web design. But then when I changed over and rebranded and did this much more meaningful thing, I didn't just say, oh, I'm going to help women. I took some inventory of my life. I've been mentoring women all my life, not for money or anything like that. But when you take an inventory, I've been doing this my whole entire life. I've mentored dancers. I've mentored women in film. I've had internships. I was always the one who had, who took even if I was directing, I was taking on interns saying, hey, let me teach you this. This is great, blah, blah, blah. I think I'm a teacher by nature. Mm-hmm. So I honestly didn't have any problem feeling like I couldn't do it because I have been doing it so long. And then what really pushed me was seeing people who I haven't seen in decades, like people from high school or some people friends from college. Like they were telling me, oh, that's great. You were always so inspiring to me. And I'm like, oh, like chills, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm making the right decision, So that's how it organically happened to me. And by those women being so sweet and saying that to me really was my final push of you can do this.
Well, speaking of the final push, maybe it's time for the final push now. This is where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already inspired today that's thinking, maybe I could do this too. Maybe I could start a blog or a podcast or take inventory of my life and find out what I have to share with the world to help the world, and give them your best advice and push them to do it.
What would I say? I would say something that I wish someone had said to me when I was like 20. And I hear this now after years and years and years. I just heard this not too long ago, but it was very powerful for me. I would tell them that you are the only person in the entire world who can tell a story like you can. You are your own unique voice. No one can express your thoughts or feelings or your opinions like you do. That's what makes you unique. Only you can do that. It's your message, right? And that's what makes it interesting. And that's what makes it sell, because it's different, I would really believe in yourself and really push forward, because I have to tell you this too, and I have been in the trenches. There is no one that's going to give you a chance. You have to go out there and get the chance yourself. So you're the only one who's really responsible for your fate, right? So I would say believe in yourself and just never, never give up.
I love it.
That's what I would say.
Casey, perfect advice. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and for giving us that push.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
And where can we find you?
You can find me on my website at Casey Destefano. That's CASEYDESTEFANO.com. And you can find me on Twitter or Facebook. Twitter is Create with Casey. And my podcast is Women with Balls in the Air.
I love the ellipsis is very important in that.
You have to really put it there. You really do. Or people are like, women with balls.
I love it. Yeah, so you can find her podcast and her website and all the links we talked about today, and all the resources at yourcreativepush.com/Casey. Casey, thank you again.
Thanks so much, Youngman. Great show.
Oh, a great show indeed. Thank you, Casey, for coming on the show. Remember her story, guys, about Martin Scorsese. You know, even these legends have their own inner battles. They have their own confidence issues. They have their own doubts about what they're doing. It never, ever goes away. And that is a good thing, you know. If it goes away, then you are complacent. And yes, there is a gap between you and your favorite artist, you and your favorite photographer, you and your favorite director, whatever it is that you do. But it's your job to close that gap. You can't use it as an excuse and say, I'll never be like Martin Scorsese. Well, yeah, of course you won't, because you're just stuck in that fear of closing that gap. You know who else wasn't like Martin Scorsese? Martin Scorsese. He had to go and put all of the work into his craft to become one of the best directors out there. So just try to remember what Casey said, that there is nobody that is going to give you that chance. You have to make that chance for yourself. And the way to do that is just by putting the work in. So just put it in every single day. That's all you have to do. Don't be afraid. Just do it. Get there. Get to that legendary version of yourself that, you know that you're destined to become. Just do it. On tomorrow's show, we have R.M. Kavanaugh.
I think we sweep a lot that goes on under the carpet to kind of protect ourselves as human beings. I feel that if you hit your fears head on, you become a stronger person. You know, like the death of a loved one, people can try to ignore it instead of dealing with and going through the emotional turmoil. And I feel if you deal with it and confront all your fears, you will end up being a stronger person. And I find those areas of life more interesting than the successes and the failures. I find the in-between a little bit, just about the moment before chaos either happens or the moment the aftermath chaos happens, or before the moment of something happy or just after. I like to capture the moment that people are not focusing on.
RM is an awesome painter from Ireland who has a really cool style and a really cool opinion about what art should be like, and his art is awesome. You should definitely check it out before the show, or you can check it out in the show notes tomorrow. He's a really cool guy, and we ended up talking for over an hour after the interview, just about all different aspects of creativity in life, and he was an absolute pleasure to talk to, so I know that he will inspire you tomorrow. But for today, hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done, so go and get it done. Go take the steps to become the Martin Scorsese that you're supposed to be. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all of your support. Keep pushing each other and keep pushing yourself and do the thing that you're supposed to do. I love y'all, and we will see you tomorrow for the push again if you need it. Have a great day, everybody.